Coming up next, brother. Well, that was a good brother. I can't do that anymore. I can't. Okay, that's the last Hulk Hogan, and that's the last Uptown Funk for this hour.
That could do you in.
Yeah, my voice can't take both. Gerald Celente with TrendsJournal is going to join us next. Talk about what's coming up in this new year, what he predicts. You know, the guy who predicted the recession. Yeah, he'll be on with us next on KFI AM 640.
Time for the news and information combo pack.
KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640, Tim Conway Jr. Show, Aaron Bender filling in. And I think I filled in for Tim about this time last year when we talked with the publisher of the TrendsJournal, Gerald Celente, and he joins me again on this New Year's night. Gerald, thanks for the time.
Oh, thank you, and Happy New Year.
To you, too. We talked last year about some of the hits and misses for 2013 and what you thought was going to happen in 2014. So now we get to talk about the hits and misses for 14 and what you think is going to happen for 2015. Let's remind the listeners of some of the things that you thought might happen in 2014. What came true? What didn't?
Well, some of the big ones, of course, China Boomtown. We had said that there was going to start unraveling the housing market in China, and watch that money come pouring in to a city and a state and a country near you, and it's flooding in, as well as the acquisitions that they're making. Matter of fact, of course, they bought the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and today they just announced they're buying a major insurance company. The kind of misses we got on the economic front, we had believed that the Federal Reserve would raise interest rates and would really hurt the markets. Do you realize, Aaron, that the Federal Reserve has not raised interest rates since 2006?
Wow. I was going to guess 9 or 10, given the, but I guess they've cut them since then, and then just haven't done anything to them since.
Right, they have not raised, they kept cutting them since that time. What's going on now, one of the trends, well, we'll talk about those later, but we call it bankism. This isn't capitalism anymore. When you saw the markets declining in early December, the Fed came out and they said, well, there's going to be patience in raising rates again. So we don't know when they're going to raise them. So that really knocked off our economic forecast, because when rates go up, this economy slows down. When you're looking at the housing market, for example, the numbers just came out in November, and they're moderate. The prices aren't going up like they were. Things are slowing down, and this is with record low interest rates. And when you look at, we just saw the jobs numbers that just came out last week on new jobs for unemployment, new claims for unemployment, and they're back up. And the jobs that have been created aren't very good ones. But what I'm saying is, what we had forecast was that they're going to have to raise rates. When they raise rates, you're going to see this economy go down. So we got that one wrong.
But
and again,
given that they didn't raise rates. Is this economy still healthy enough, or in a position where rates can't be raised? They
can't be, and It's not only here. Again, we saw what happened with the equity markets in the beginning of December. They were unraveling, and then the Fed came out and said we're going to keep interest rates. Here, they're loaning money to the banks at the big banks at 0.25%. So figure it out. They're loaning them to almost nothing. And so what you're looking at in the markets, the reason the equity markets are going up, most of the equity markets are going up because companies are buying back stock because they're borrowing money cheaply, and private equity deals, because they're borrowing money cheaply, are back to 2007 levels. So when you look at the underlying, again, putting all the facts together, Pew Research Center came out with a study last week. The gap between the rich and the poor now in the United States is at the worst time in recorded history, even worse than during the Gilded Age.
Now, what else didn't quite hit in 2014?
That was the big one.
Yeah.
The other ones we got pretty much on target. Other things such as there's a boomer renaissance going on, And it's happening for a number of reasons. You know, in the other ages of time, they used to look up to the elders because you've been around a while and you know the score. And what's happening with boomers is through two reasons, either voluntarily or involuntarily, they're having to work longer. And in doing so, they're recreating themselves. A lot of people that are retiring are saying, I really don't want to retire and I want to do what I didn't do before. So we're seeing a big movement coming from the boomer generation that's really spurring a whole new direction in thought. And it's not, they don't want to end up as inmates in nursing homes as they're watching happen to their parents. So this is going to be a big one, we think. And we think they're going to be on the cutting edge of a renaissance. And it's starting to happen already.
All right, let's break for news real quick, and then we'll talk all about 2015. And one of the questions, and just reading the first few sections of the TrendsJournal that has come out, your 2015 forecast, basically, history before it happens, which you can find, by the way, TrendsJournal.com. In reading the first part, I'll just throw out the question now: how real is wealth? And we'll get to that question and answer next.
When you think news, you think
KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. Tim Conway Jr. Show. Aaron Bender filling in. Usually we do the Good Jam right here, but Thursday nights we always move it to 9:30. So we'll do the Good Jam at 9:30. We're talking with Gerald Celente, publisher of the TrendsJournal at TrendsJournal.com. And we've talked about hits and misses for 2014. Now let's take a look at the year that now is on this January 1st. Your 2015 forecast. What are some of the big items people should look for, watch for, prepare for?
Price wars is one of them. When you're seeing the price of oil going down, this is no conspiracy theory to get Russia. It's too much product on the market and slow demand. I mentioned earlier what's going on in China. The bubbles burst over there. So if Americans and Europeans aren't buying, and most of Europe is in a recession, then the Chinese aren't manufacturing. If they're not manufacturing, well, China's not using up the oil, or Indonesia, Vietnam. So you're seeing demand way down, and it's not only with oil. It's with copper. It's with iron ore. A ton of iron ore in Russia, rebar, reinforcement rod, is cheaper than a ton of cabbage. There's so much oversupply. And then you look you go out of the commodities market, and you look what's going on in retail. 70% off before Christmas Day. In the old days, sales didn't happen until after Christmas, and it was only about 50% off, and it was the junk left over. So what we're looking at is too much, and it all ties together, Aaron, too much supply and lower demand, because it goes back to what we were talking about before, the Pew Research study, and where the money's ending up. Check this number out. 85 people have more money than 3.25 billion people on the planet. So what you're seeing is a shrinking of the middle class.
Now, is that 85 Americans or just 85
in
people
the planet, around the world?
85 compared to 3.2 billion.
Yes, this is unheard of. So what you're seeing is the wealth being concentrated in the hands of the few. And what's very different now than in the past, we had the robber baron era, and that's why a lot of regulations were put in place that they took away, which is why there's no competition now. Robson-Patman Act, Glass-Steagall Act, Clayton Antitrust Act, etc. But those robber barons were making things. They were producing things. This is vapor. This is air. This is private equity groups. They're not making anything. All they're making money for themselves. And again, when you look at the equity markets, anybody that wants to do the research could find it. A large portion, over half of the equity market increase is because of companies buying back their own stock. They're not creating anything. And then again, going back with the mergers and acquisitions, they're not creating anything. So that's the big difference that's going on, which brings us to other issues. And it's one of the top trends. It's called the grand manipulation. The whole game's rigged, and people better grow up. And if they think I'm wrong, I could prove that this is no longer capitalism, it's bankism. And that's one of our trends, and it's been written by Nomi Prinz, who wrote All the President's Bankers, a famous book that's out now. And here's the deal. 4 words killed it. Too big to fail. In capitalism, there's no such thing. It's a total banking takeover. The banks have grown 40% larger, just a handful of them, than they were before the Panic of '08. And it's not only in the United States. Look what's going on over there in Europe. I got a deal for you. Put your money in my bank, and you have to pay me interest to keep it there. That's what they're doing. Look what's going on over in Japan. Abenomics. Well, I got a deal for you. We call it something else. They call it quantitative easing. We'll call it a Japanese name over here. They're putting in the equivalent of $3 trillion relative to GDP a year to boost up the economy in Japan. Now, go back. Who does it hurt? It hurts us. How? Once upon a time, when I was a little boy, people used to put money in the bank. They call them savings accounts. Yeah, that's right. You put your money in the bank, and you would get interest on your money, and the interest would be more than the inflation rate. Gone. Zero.
Yeah,
nada.
My wife,
next to nothing.
My wife and I put. I'm with a credit union. She was with another bank that can be found in America, and we looked around to try to chase the interest rate, just to give you an idea of all the banks that we were dealing with. And it was like 0.1% to maybe 0.3% interest rates on a checking or savings account for the banks. And we were jumping for joy because we finally moved the money to the credit union because we were getting 1% for our money.
Exactly. And then they go back to the grand manipulation. The banks are borrowing at 0.25%, and hey, well, look at those rates on your credit card. Yeah, look at the rates across the board. They're getting the dough for nothing, and we're the one. It's bankism, not capitalism. They're making all the money. So then when you keep going on to the trends, you can see where things are leading. And this is a global issue. For example, what's going on, it hasn't happened here in the States yet. One of the big ones is takeover. And again, this is a conspiracy theory. They call it, for instance, a Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's one of the deals. And another one over in the Atlantic. The trade, it's TIP. It's the same thing. This has nothing to do with trade. When you look at the agreement, which was released by WikiLeaks, they will not allow we the people to look at it. The Congress hasn't looked at it. The only people that are looking at it are the corporations that are putting it together, and Obama has it on the fast track for Congress to just pass. It has nothing to do with trade. A small portion of it. All the trade deals are done. The multinationals actually have the right to supersede sovereign laws, even to the level of freedom of speech, if they don't like what you're saying about what they're doing, whether it's a GMO or a product. So it's a multinationalization and more than just a globalization, but the point I'm making, there are protests going on all across Europe about this, and not a peep in the States. Hey, how about that Kim Kardashian, huh? That's
Speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up. She's like a selfie queen, and you have in the 2015 forecast selfie journalism. Because I was
CEO of the Trends Research Institute, TrendsJournal. His name is Derek Osinenko. He's an icon in the business. He used to be the editor-in-chief of Gannett News. There are no newspapers anymore.
No, they're not.
There are no feet on the beat. They've all, again, going back to the mergers and acquisitions, all being bought out by private equity groups, and all they know how to do is cut so they make more profit. Selfie journalism is the new trend. And you're seeing it with all of what's going on with the police and all of this. It would never happen without the cell phones and on and on. This is an opportunity to recreate the family newspapers that have been destroyed by the private equity groups and the bottom line feeders. And so selfie journalism is something that's going to recreate the Fourth Estate as more and more young people see the opportunity in it, because the Fourth Estate is toast. Nobody's looking over us anymore, not the media.
All right, Gerald Celente is the publisher of the Trends Journal. You can find it at TrendsJournal.com. Also on Twitter at TrendsJournal and at Gerald Celente. Gerald, a great conversation as always every year. Hopefully, it doesn't take another year for us to chat.
Oh, I'd love to be back on. Thank you so much, and all the best to you and everyone listening.
To you too. And when we come back, we just looked at 2015. What's going to happen? How about 2016? Jeb Bush lining up the cards for a run at the White House, and why is a Palin standing on a dog? That's next. It's the Tim Conway Jr. Show. I'm Aaron Bender filling in on KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640.